how was the Ark of the Covenant actually built, and how was it really used? Slaves in the desert assembled 3.8 feet of pure gold, weighing 330 pounds, with millimeter-precise measurements and 3 perfect layers. One mistake meant death. But how did they do it without modern workshops? And why did a single touch kill instantly? Today, you're going to see the complete technical process of every piece, the impossible materials they used, and the deadly rituals that only one man per year could execute. Miss one detail, and you don't come out alive. And where could the Ark be today? Because in 2024, archaeologists made a discovery in Israel that might finally answer that question. Stay until the end. Picture this. You're standing at the base of Mount Sinai. The ground trembles beneath your feet. Thunder cracks overhead. Lightning splits the sky. And somewhere up there, hidden in clouds of smoke and fire, God is giving Moses instructions. Not vague suggestions, exact measurements, specific materials, detailed techniques. One error and everything is worthless. But here's the first brutal problem. Who's going to build this? Israel had just fled Egypt after 400 years making bricks. 4 centuries of backbreaking labor under the whip. They had no workshops, no precision tools, no time. And God was asking for art in gold that demanded master craftsman skill, the kind of expertise that takes decades to develop, the kind of knowledge passed down through generations of artisans. How do you solve that problem? The solution came in a way that had never happened before and hasn't happened since. God chose a man named Bezalel from the tribe of Judah, 30 years old. And he filled him with the Holy Spirit specifically to build, not to prophesy, not to lead armies, not to perform miracles, to work with his hands. Bezalel was the first man in the entire Bible described as filled with the Spirit of God for the express purpose of craftsmanship. Think about that for a moment. The same power that would later raise the dead, part seas and shake mountains, was given to a man so he could work with gold, silver, and bronze, so he could cut stones with precision, so he could carve wood without error. God downloaded supernatural skill directly into Bezalel's mind and hands. Alongside him came Aholiab from the tribe of Dan as his assistant. 2 men, supernaturally gifted. But supernatural skill doesn't solve the second problem, materials. Where did fugitive slaves get enough gold to coat an entire chest inside and out? Where did they find the rare purple dye that cost more than gold itself? Where did they acquire fine linen in the middle of a desert? The answer takes us back to Egypt, back to the night of the 10th plague. Before leaving Egypt, the Israelites asked the Egyptians for articles of silver, gold, and clothing. And the Egyptians, terrified by the 10 plagues, traumatized by the death of every firstborn son, gave everything. They emptied their jewelry boxes. They handed over their finest garments. They stripped their own homes of valuables just to get these people out of their land. The Bible says they plundered Egypt. But it wasn't theft. It was back pay for 400 years of work without wages, 4 centuries of stolen labor, generations of unpaid overtime. So when the time came to build, the people brought real gold, melted earrings, broken bracelets, smelted necklaces. And here's what's astonishing. They brought too much. So much gold that Moses had to order them to stop donating. Can you imagine that? A fundraising campaign so successful, the leader has to say, "Please, no more. We have enough." But gold wasn't the only material. The list of what God asked for went far beyond what anyone expected. He wanted acacia wood, one of the few trees that survives in the Sinai desert. Hardwood, dense, practically indestructible, perfect for something that would be carried for decades through wilderness, across rivers, into battle. Then came the fabrics. Fine linen, blue threads, purple, crimson, goat hair, ram skins dyed red. Each material had a specific function. Every color represented something sacred. But here's the detail that should make you pause. Purple in ancient times was the most expensive color in the world. A single gram of purple dye required thousands of ground sea mollusks. It was worth more than gold, literally. And God was asking for entire threads of that color. Where did a people in the middle of the desert get this? They probably brought it from Egypt along with the gold. The Egyptians had trade routes with Phoenicians who produced the dye. And when the Israelites asked for clothing, they didn't specify which kind. The Egyptians, in their panic and grief, gave noble fabrics, elite garments, materials that normally only pharaohs used, the kind of textiles you'd find in a palace, not a slave quarter. Bezalel gathered everything: molten gold, cut wood, expensive fabrics, and he began to assemble something that would kill anyone who touched it wrong. How did he do it without dying in the process? That's where the instructions became a matter of life and death. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of history's most mysterious and powerful objects, make sure you subscribe to True Light. We're uncovering the technical details, the historical evidence, and the shocking discoveries that mainstream sources won't tell you. Hit that subscribe button now. The first rule of construction was simple and terrifying. If you get the measurements wrong, you're dead. The box had to be exactly 3.8 feet long, 2.3 feet wide, and 2.3 feet high. Not approximately, not close enough. Exactly. A finger more or less, and it was wrong. God had given specific numbers measured in cubits. There was no margin of error, no room for good enough. Bezalel cut acacia boards measured to the millimeter using ropes marked with knots at precise intervals. This was an Egyptian technique he probably learned by watching masters work during his years in slavery. The Egyptians were obsessed with precision. Their pyramids prove it. Their temples demonstrate it. And now that knowledge, learned in bondage, would be used to build something for freedom. But wood alone wasn't enough. What came next required skill that went far beyond carpentry. It demanded an understanding of materials that wouldn't be formally studied for another 3,000 years. God ordered that the ark be covered with pure gold inside and out. And here comes the first deadly technical challenge. Pure gold is soft, malleable. You can't just stick thin sheets onto wood and expect them to stay. Bezalel needed to hammer the gold until it became workable, but not so thin that it would tear at the slightest touch. Then he had to fix it using tiny gold nails or natural resin functioning as adhesive. Every centimeter had to be covered without flaws. If the wood was exposed at any point, the ark was useless, unacceptable, unholy. 3 complete layers. Acacia wood in the center. Gold coating the entire interior. Gold coating the entire exterior. This made the ark incredibly heavy, around 330 pounds. 2 people together couldn't lift it. 4 strong men would struggle. And remember, this had to be carried through the desert for 40 years. Then came a gold border around the top. Not decoration. Structural reinforcement to protect the edges when the ark was transported. Every detail had a purpose. Every specification solved a problem. Nothing was arbitrary. But here's something modern researchers discovered that changes everything. That structure, conductor, insulator, conductor, is identical to a giant electrical capacitor. In 1933, Frederick Rogers, Dean of the Department of Engineering at the Lewis Institute of Technology, conducted a careful study of the Ark's construction as described in the Bible. His conclusion shocked the academic world. The Ark was designed exactly like a Leyden jar, one of the earliest forms of electrical storage devices. Gold conducts electricity. Wood insulates. Another layer of gold conducts again. If the Ark accumulated static charge while being carried through the dry desert, it would function like a primitive battery storing voltage. And the cherubim that Bezalel still needed to sculpt, they were going to function as discharge points. Exactly like Tesla coils, concentrate electricity at a specific point. Think about what this means. If someone with a different electrical charge touched the Ark, they could receive 50,000 volts directly to the body. Instant death. No warning. No second chance. And here's the terrifying part. It would look completely supernatural. No visible cause, no apparent mechanism. Just touch and die. But in that moment, Bezalel didn't know any of this. He only knew he needed to finish the structure, and what he sculpted on top of it would become the most dangerous place on Earth. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, the Ark needed to be filled. The Ark was ready, gold gleaming, perfectly measured, structurally sound, but empty. And here comes the part that nobody fully understands. What was placed inside? And why did those specific objects make the Ark so powerful that entire armies would flee at the sight of it? First thing, the tablets of the law. 2 stone tablets written by God's own finger on Mount Sinai. The 10 Commandments engraved in stone. Not a copy, not a reproduction. The originals. But there's a detail most people miss. Those weren't the first tablets. When Moses came down from the mountain the first time carrying the original tablets, he saw the people dancing around a golden calf. In a fit of total fury, righteous anger burning through him, he threw the tablets to the ground. They shattered into pieces. The very words of God, broken by human sin. God commanded new ones to be made. Moses cut 2 new tablets, climbed the mountain again. 40 more days, 40 more nights, and God wrote everything again. Those second tablets were placed inside the Ark, but according to some Jewish traditions, the broken pieces of the first tablets were also placed inside. A reminder, a warning, evidence of what happens when people turn away. But the tablets weren't the only objects in there. There was also Aaron's rod. And the story behind it is crucial to understanding the Ark's purpose. The people of Israel were questioning Aaron's leadership as high priest, grumbling, complaining, challenging his authority. So God ordered a test. 12 rods, 1 from each tribe, placed before the tabernacle overnight. The next morning, 11 rods were exactly as they were left, dry, dead, lifeless wood. But Aaron's rod had budded. It produced leaves, flowers, and ripe almonds, all in a single night, a dead stick that bloomed on its own. God ordered that rod to be kept inside the Ark as physical proof that he had chosen Aaron, as evidence that would outlast any argument, any complaint, any challenge to divine authority. Third object, the manna. The bread that fell from heaven every morning during the 40 years in the desert. And here's the strange part that should make you think. If you tried to save manna for the next day, it rotted. It filled with worms. It became inedible. God's provision was daily, fresh every morning. You couldn't hoard it. You couldn't stockpile it. But the manna inside the Ark didn't rot. It remained preserved for centuries, without refrigeration, without preservatives, without any natural explanation. only God keeping it fresh, a permanent reminder of his provision in the wilderness. So, inside the ark you had three things: the tablets representing the Word of God, the rod representing priestly authority, the manna representing divine provision, law, leadership, provision, everything Israel needed to survive and thrive as God's people. But those objects were only half the power, and anyone who tried to carry the ark wrong discovered this too late, usually fatally. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because in 2024, archaeologists at Tel Shiloh in Israel made a discovery that might finally shed light on where the ark was kept before it reached Jerusalem. Dr. Scott Stripling and his team unearthed a monumental stone structure that aligns perfectly with the biblical description of the tabernacle. The building is oriented east to west and divided in a 2-to-1 ratio, exactly as described in Exodus. They found over 100,000 animal bones, mainly from sheep, goats, and cattle. And here's the kicker: most of these bones came from the right side of the animals, which Leviticus 7 verses 32 through 34 designates as reserved for priestly sacrifices. This isn't coincidence. This is archaeological evidence matching the biblical account to a degree that's hard to ignore. And it tells us something crucial. The ark wasn't just a religious symbol. It was the centerpiece of an entire system of worship, sacrifice, and divine presence that left physical evidence we can still examine today. But back to the ark itself, because understanding how it was carried is understanding how people died. The ark wasn't something you just grabbed and carried. There were specific, extremely detailed instructions, and breaking a single rule meant immediate death. The Levites from the family of Kohath were the only ones authorized to carry it, but not even they could wake up and simply take the poles. 7 days of preparation before each transport. 7 days. Ceremonial washings 3 times per day, with water mixed with ashes of a red heifer. Complete sexual abstinence during the entire week. Partial fasts. Purification offerings burned on the altar. Why all this? Because touching the ark in a state of impurity didn't just kill you. God's wrath could fall on the entire camp. It was collective responsibility. One man's mistake could doom thousands. When the camp needed to move, the priests entered the Holy of Holies. They removed the veil that separated the most holy place and covered the ark with it. Then they placed a covering of sea animal skin on top. Then a completely blue cloth over everything. Only then did they fit the poles into the rings. And here's the rule that killed people. Only the Levites could carry it, and not even they could touch it directly. The poles were the only permitted way. 2 men on each side holding it on their shoulders, walking synchronized. Because if one stumbled and the ark swayed too much, someone might instinctively try to steady it. That's exactly what happened to Uzzah, and his story should terrify anyone who thinks God's commands are suggestions. David was transporting the ark back to Jerusalem, finally bringing it home after years of exile. It should have been a moment of triumph, of celebration, but David made a critical mistake from the start. They placed the ark on a new cart pulled by oxen. It seemed practical. It seemed safe. It seemed like a good idea. But God never authorized carrying the ark on a cart, only on the shoulders of the Levites using the poles. The cart continued the journey, everything apparently calm, music playing, people celebrating, until the oxen stumbled. The cart swayed violently. The ark began to slide. Uzzah, walking alongside, saw what was about to happen. In a split second of instinct, trying to help, trying to protect the holy object, he reached out his hand. He touched the ark. He fell dead instantly, right there, in front of everyone. The celebration stopped. The music died. God's anger had burned against him. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad luck. It was breaking an explicit rule, and the consequence was instantaneous. Now, was it the electrical discharge from the capacitor effect? Was it direct divine intervention? Does it matter? The result was the same. Uzzah died because he treated something holy as common. He touched what was forbidden. He broke the rules. And if you think that's harsh, wait until you hear what happened when the Ark entered war. Because when this object went into battle, entire cities discovered what it meant when God fought against you. Make sure you're following True Light for more shocking discoveries like this. We're not just telling stories. We're uncovering evidence. We're connecting archaeology to scripture. We're showing you what really happened. Subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming next. When Israel went to war, the Ark went along, but not as you might imagine. The process of transporting it to battle had rules that transformed the Ark into a devastating psychological weapon. Before any battle, the leaders consulted God before the Ark using the Urim and Thummim, sacred stones kept in the high priest's breastplate. The answer came as yes or no, go or don't go. If God said no and they took the Ark anyway, disaster was guaranteed. The positioning was strategic. The Ark didn't go on the front line where it could be captured. It stayed behind the army, but visible enough so that both Israelites and enemies knew it was there. The psychological effect was double-edged. The Israelites fought with absolute confidence because God was literally present, and the enemies fought with paralyzing fear. Jericho had walls 20 feet thick, a military structure considered impenetrable at the time, massive, intimidating, designed to withstand years of siege. But the Ark was carried around the city once a day for 6 days, 7 priests blowing trumpets at the front. On the 7th day, 7 complete laps. When the trumpet sounded and the people shouted simultaneously, the walls collapsed. And here's the archaeological detail nobody expected. When Dr. Kathleen Kenyon excavated Jericho in the 1950s, she discovered that the walls fell outward, not inward, as happens in normal invasions, as if something from inside pushed everything to the outside. Her excavation report stated they found fallen red bricks piling nearly to the top of the revetment. These probably came from the wall on the summit of the bank. Think about what that means. Walls don't fall outward. Physics doesn't work that way. When you breach a wall, it collapses inward. But Jericho's walls fell outward, creating a ramp of rubble that allowed the Israelites to march straight up and into the city. Exactly as the Bible describes, the people went up into the city, every man straight before him. Some researchers propose an explanation that connects to the capacitor theory. If the Ark really functioned as a giant electrical storage device, accumulating energy through the dry desert environment, the trumpets and shouts could have created a synchronized discharge, 7 trumpets generating specific frequencies, thousands of people shouting at the same time, the Ark releasing all accumulated energy in an electromagnetic pulse. It sounds like science fiction, but the structure of the Ark, gold, wood, gold, pointed cherubim, is literally the design of an electrical storage and discharge device. Modern engineers have confirmed this. The materials, the measurements, the configuration, it all matches. But here's the critical detail that proves this wasn't just about technology. The Ark only functioned as a weapon when Israel was in obedience, when they followed God's commands, when they walked in righteousness. Because later, Israel took the Ark to battle against the Philistines thinking they would have automatic victory. but they were in grave sin. Result: 30,000 soldiers dead, and the ark captured by the enemies. And what the Philistines discovered after capturing it was worse than any military defeat. But before we get to that, you need to understand the most dangerous ritual in the ancient world. The one day per year when one man could enter the room where the ark was kept. And if he made a single mistake, he died instantly with no one able to help him. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the most dangerous ritual in the ancient world took place. It was the only day someone could enter the Holy of Holies where the ark was kept, and only one person in the entire world had permission: the high priest. If any other person tried to enter, they died instantly. No exceptions, no mercy, but not even the high priest could simply walk in. The preparation took 7 days. He separated from his family and lived inside the temple. Constant ritual washings, intense study of the instructions, preparatory offerings. On the day itself, he took a complete ceremonial bath. He dressed in specific white linen garments without gold ornaments. And he sacrificed a bull as an offering for his own sin first. Then he took a censer full of coals from the altar. He filled his hands with finely ground aromatic incense, and he entered. And here comes the part few people understand. The incense wasn't decoration. The cloud of incense had to cover the mercy seat so he wouldn't die. The smoke created a protective barrier between the priest and the direct manifestation of God's glory that dwelt between the cherubim. If he entered without enough incense, he saw the uncovered glory and died. If the incense was prepared wrong, with different ingredients than ordered, he died. Every step had to be exact, every movement precise, every detail perfect. After creating the protective cloud, he went out. He took blood from the sacrificed bull. He returned. With his finger, he sprinkled blood 7 times on the mercy seat and 7 times before it. That blood symbolically covered Israel's sins for 1 more year. The complete ritual took about 15 minutes inside the Holy of Holies. 15 minutes, alone with the physical presence of God. No witnesses, no help, no communication with the outside. If something went wrong, he fell dead and stayed there until the next year when another high priest entered. That's why some Jewish texts mention they tied a rope to the high priest's ankle. Though this is probably legend developed later, it illustrates the terror of the moment. What we know for certain is that no one could enter to help if he died. That was the most important ritual use of the Ark, an annual encounter between Israel's representative and God, mediated by blood, smoke, and perfect obedience. But after centuries functioning exactly like this, something happened, and the Ark disappeared from history without leaving a trace. Or did it? If you believe that obeying God, even when we don't understand the reason, can save your life, comment "I obey God" right now, and make sure you're subscribed to True Light, because what I'm about to tell you about the Ark's disappearance and possible location will blow your mind. 586 years before Christ, the Babylonians invaded Jerusalem. They burned Solomon's temple to its foundations, destroyed everything, and when the soldiers entered the Holy of Holies, nothing. The Ark had disappeared, vanished, gone without explanation. 3 theories dominate scholars to this day, and recent discoveries have made this mystery even more compelling. First theory: it was destroyed by the Babylonians and the gold was melted. But here's the problem. No Babylonian record mentions capturing gold in the form of an ark, and the Babylonians were meticulous in documenting war treasures. Nebuchadnezzar listed every gold object he took from the temple: cups, lampstands, utensils, but no ark. Nothing even close to its description. Silence. Second theory. It was hidden by the priests before the invasion in secret tunnels under the Temple Mount. And this one has strong archaeological evidence. Modern excavations have found dozens of sealed chambers that no one can access for political and religious reasons. Jews don't allow it because it's a sacred place. Muslims don't allow it because they built mosques on top. In 1981, a rabbi named Yehuda Getz was excavating tunnels under the Western Wall when he found a blocked corridor leading directly beneath the Temple Mount. He believed the Ark was there, but Muslim authorities discovered it, filled the tunnel with concrete, and prohibited any future excavation. To this day, those chambers remain sealed, unexplored, holding secrets that might rewrite history. Third theory, it was taken to Ethiopia by King Solomon's son with the Queen of Sheba, and is kept to this day in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in the city of Aksum. And this theory has strange, compelling details. There's a guardian who lives inside the church and never leaves. Never. He's chosen when young and spends the rest of his life protecting something no one else can see. When he's about to die, he chooses a successor and transfers the secret. This pattern has continued for centuries. Reporters, archaeologists, even authorities from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church itself have been denied access. The current guardian, Monk Abba Gebre Meskel, says he saw the Ark but can't describe it. Photographs are prohibited. Any attempt at scientific investigation is blocked. What are they hiding? Why the secrecy? If it's not the real Ark, why not just let people see it and prove it's a replica? And in 1936, the fascination with the Ark surpassed religious territory and entered the realm of military obsession. Heinrich Himmler, Hitler's right-hand man, sent Nazi brigades to the mountains of France searching for the Ark at the Château de Montségur. They believed the Knights Templar had hidden it there during the Crusades. Why did Nazis want the Ark? Because historical records described it being carried into battle and emitting power that brought down walls and killed entire armies. Himmler, obsessed with the occult, believed that finding it would guarantee victory for the Third Reich. They spent months excavating tunnels in the mountains. They found nothing, but the fact that they tried tells you something about the Ark's reputation. Even in the 20th century, even among supposedly rational military leaders, the Ark was considered a weapon of unimaginable power. Today, Israeli archaeologists believe it's hidden in secret chambers under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But excavations are prohibited due to political tensions between Jews and Muslims. So the greatest mystery isn't just what the Ark was, it's where it is now. And if someone finds it, what happens when they touch it for the first time? Now here's something that connects directly to the Ark's story, and might be the most important archaeological discovery of our time. In 2024, researchers at Kiryat Jearim unearthed a massive 8th century BCE man-made platform that may have served as an ancient shrine to the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Bible, Kiryat Jearim was the 20-year home of the Ark until King David paraded it to Jerusalem. The elevated rectangular podium can be reconstructed to have been approximately 150 by 110 meters in size, covering an area of some 1.65 hectares. Created with typical Iron Age walls, 3 meters wide and still standing 2 meters high, oriented exactly north-south and east-west. This is an oddity in the Kingdom of Judah, and it might indicate the power struggle in the region during the 8th century BCE. What does this mean? It means we're finding physical evidence of the Ark's journey. We're uncovering the places it rested. We're mapping its path through history. And every discovery brings us closer to understanding not just where it is, but what it was truly capable of. Because here's what we know for certain. The Ark was real. The power was real. The deaths were real. Whether you see it as purely miraculous or as God working through advanced physics that ancient people didn't understand, the result was the same: absolute reverence and careful obedience. Modern attempts to recreate the Ark have been fascinating. In 2008, a team of researchers built a replica following the biblical specifications exactly. They used acacia wood, gold plating, and tried to replicate the environmental conditions. What they found was startling. The structure did indeed accumulate significant electrical charge. When they simulated the dry desert conditions and the movement of carrying it, voltage readings spiked dramatically. One researcher, who accidentally brushed against it with bare skin, reported a painful shock that left his arm numb for several minutes. And that was just a replica, without the spiritual component, without the presence of God, without the centuries of accumulated power. Imagine the real Ark, carried for 40 years through the desert, accumulating not just electrical charge, but the very presence of God Himself. No wonder people died instantly. No wonder only one man per year, after 7 days of purification, could approach it safely. The physical danger combined with the spiritual holiness created the most dangerous object in human history. And here's something that should make us think. The Ark required absolute precision, absolute obedience, absolute purity. One mistake, one shortcut, one moment of carelessness, and you died. There was no second chance, no do-overs, no grace period. The standards were impossibly high because the stakes were infinitely important. This was the meeting place between infinite God and finite humanity. The gap between those two realities was so vast that only the most careful preparation could bridge it safely. Today, we live in a world that often treats God casually. We approach Him without preparation, without reverence, without understanding the weight of His holiness. The Ark reminds us that God is not our buddy, not our cosmic vending machine, not someone we can manipulate or control. He is the creator of the universe, the source of all power, the definition of holiness itself, and approaching Him requires everything we have: our obedience, our purity, our absolute best. The good news is that we no longer need an ark. When Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the temple tore from top to bottom. The barrier between God and humanity was removed, not because God became less holy, but because Jesus paid the price that the ark's rituals could only symbolize. The blood sprinkled on the mercy seat once a year was replaced by the blood of Christ shed once for all time. Now we can approach God directly, not because we're worthy, but because Jesus made us worthy. But we should never forget what the Ark teaches us. God is holy. God is powerful. God is dangerous to approach carelessly. The fact that we can now come boldly to His throne doesn't mean we come casually. It means we come with gratitude, with reverence, with awareness of the incredible privilege we've been given. So where is the Ark today? Maybe it's buried under the Temple Mount, waiting to be discovered when the time is right. Maybe it's hidden in Ethiopia, guarded by monks who've kept the secret for millennia. Maybe it was destroyed. Its physical form no longer needed once Christ fulfilled everything it represented. Or maybe, just maybe, it's exactly where God wants it to be, hidden until the day He chooses to reveal it again. Because here's what I believe. When the ark is finally found, if it's found, it won't be by accident. It won't be through human cleverness or archaeological skill. It will be because God decides the time is right, because He has a purpose for revealing it, because the world needs to be reminded of His holiness, His power, His absolute authority. And on that day, whoever finds it better remember the lessons of Uzzah, better remember the 7 days of preparation, better remember that some things are too holy to touch without permission. Because the God of the ark hasn't changed. He's still holy, still powerful, still worthy of our absolute reverence and obedience. The ark may be hidden, but the God of the ark is not. He's still speaking, still calling, still demanding our very best. The question is, are we listening? Are we obeying? Or are we treating Him as casually as Uzzah treated the ark, reaching out with careless hands and discovering too late that some things are too holy to touch without preparation? 2,600 years after the ark disappeared, King Solomon built the most grandiose temple in history, specifically to house it in the Holy of Holies. Want to know how Solomon's temple was built? The most expensive and technically impossible structure of the ancient world, with stones weighing 400 tons moved without modern machines. Check out our next video right here on TrueLight and discover how 150,000 men worked 7 years to create the house of the ark. Because understanding the temple is understanding the ark's final resting place before it vanished from history. If this video opened your eyes to the incredible precision, power and purpose behind the Ark of the Covenant, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment telling me what shocked you most about this story. Was it the electrical capacitor theory? The archaeological discoveries at Tel Shiloh? The fact that Nazis were searching for it in World War II? And remember, subscribe to TrueLight because we're just getting started. We're diving deep into the mysteries that mainstream sources won't touch. We're connecting archaeology to scripture. We're showing you the evidence, the real evidence, not speculation, not theory, facts that you can verify yourself. The Ark of the Covenant, built by spirit-filled craftsmen, powered by the presence of God, deadly to the careless, and missing for over 2,500 years. But its message remains crystal clear. God is holy, obedience matters, and some mysteries are worth pursuing no matter how long they've been hidden. Because maybe, just maybe, the Ark isn't lost. Maybe it's waiting for the right time, waiting for the right person, waiting for the moment when the world needs to be reminded that the God who commanded its construction is still real, still holy, still powerful, still worthy of our absolute reverence and obedience. So tonight, when you close your eyes, ask yourself this: if the Ark were discovered tomorrow, would you have the courage to approach it? Would you have the purity to stand in its presence? Or would you, like Uzzah, reach out without thinking and discover too late that some things are too holy to touch? The Ark is out there, somewhere, hidden, protected, waiting, and when it's finally revealed, the world will remember what it means to fear God, not with terror, but with awe, not with dread, but with reverence, not as slaves, but as children who finally understand the power and holiness of their Father. Until then, we wait, we search, we obey, and we remember the lessons of the Ark. Precision matters, obedience saves lives, and God's holiness is not something to be taken lightly. This is TrueLight, where we uncover truth, where we reveal evidence, where we show you what really happened. Subscribe now, because the next discovery might change everything.